Okay, so it's okay to KO, you can do it. So it's okay to knock out. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to go wrong. So let's see, what are we going to focus on today? So our agenda is talking about growth and fixed mindsets. So we're going to be understanding what both of these are. We're going to look at the pros of having a growth mindset in class, and we'll be focusing not just on our students, but also on ourselves. We're going to look at some tips on how to encourage a growth mindset, again, for our students, but also for ourselves. We're going to look at how self-reflection and the reflection cycle play a really big part in our growth mindset. We'll look at some tips on how we can challenge ourselves to be better teachers, and at the end we'll have our usual Q&A session. So please, if you are able to stay right to the end and can involve with those questions, and that would be fantastic. We'd love to hear your responses. Okay, so we'll start off with a really nice quote. It says, with the right mindset, we can't lose. We either practice what we've learned or we learn what we need to practice. So let's focus on what this right mindset would be. So first of all, let's have a think about a fixed mindset. So what is a fixed mindset? Well, it literally means that somebody whose thinking is fixed. They feel that it's impossible to change. So their qualities are fixed traits and they can't change. And they feel that talent alone leads to success and effort is not required. So somebody with a fixed mindset may well believe, I was born with these talents, that's great, I'll be successful. Or I wasn't born with any talents, I can't be successful. So let's have a look at this a little bit more. What would be the characteristics of a fixed mindset? Well, people who have a fixed mindset often believe that talent and intelligence are fixed, so you cannot grow. You're either talented and intelligent or not. There's no room for improvement. People with a fixed mindset tend to hide their flaws. They don't like them being exposed. They ignore feedback. They feel threatened by others' success, and they can believe that failure defines who they are. So before we go on, let's see if anybody has any thoughts as to how this could appear in the classroom. So imagine you're a student, or you have a group or a student in front of you, and they are really struggling with some pronunciation. They're just really finding it difficult. How would we know if they had a fixed mindset? What sort of things might they say?
Well, I think they would probably say something like, I can't do it. You know, I can't get to that next step of being able to say the word.
Yes.
They might be really self-conscious. You know, they might feel like they can't do it and they don't have any confidence in doing it. Someone just said that they might feel very unsure when answering and struggling to try again.
Yes.
You know, they might show that in their body language and even in what they say.
Yes, definitely. All of those things. Absolutely. Thank you, Rose. And thank you for whoever said that comment as well. Somebody who has a fixed mindset, they may say, well, I can't do it. I'm never going to be able to do it. This happens quite often with maths. So some people, they always struggle with maths, and they say, that's it, I can't do it, because they struggle in one area. I can't do maths. And that's that fixed mindset. So it's helping people to realize that we can come out of that. What about as a teacher? How might a teacher show a fixed mindset? So maybe they've had some feedback, most of which is positive, but there's some areas that they need to develop on, that they need to work on, sorry. How could they show a fixed mindset? What might a teacher do or say?
I think they might feel quite threatened. So they might feel attacked, you know, instead of seeing it as helpful or, you know, some points to maybe better yourself as a teacher. So they might see it as more of an attack and be very, you know, kind of not wanting to take it on as constructive criticism.
Yes.
Someone else said the teacher might struggle to actually change their approach when conducting lessons. They could become very defensive when receiving feedback. That's great.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Both of those points are really good. It's that point, and we will talk about this a little bit later. It's that about having that feedback and thinking it's a personal attack against you. You're a terrible teacher, and your mindset could be, I've taught for 20 years, I've taught for 10 years, I know my subject, I know how to teach, I cannot teach this any better. And it's trying to help us all grow out of that, because we probably all have fixed mindsets about certain things. And we need to learn how it's okay to knock that out, to grow with it. Okay, brilliant. So let's have a look at what we're really going to focus on this webinar. So what is a growth mindset? So really, it's the opposite of a fixed mindset. So people in a growth mindset believe the following often, that their learning and intelligence can grow, and that grows with time and with experience, and that their effort has an effect on their success. So the opposite, so a person with a fixed mindset, no effort will make any difference. A growth mindset recognizes that yes, the more effort we put in, the bigger our success will be. It will have an effect, it will have an impact. So what about the characteristics of somebody with a growth mindset? Well, they believe that talents and intelligence can be developed. You're not just born with them, you can develop them. They believe that effort is the path to mastery. So you don't just sit back and use your natural talents and abilities. You push yourself to make that effort to keep moving forward. They view failure as an opportunity. So nobody likes to fail. Nobody likes to have not done very well. But rather than focusing on the negative aspect that we could feel, people with a growth mindset focus on the positive that they can learn. How can they use that failure as an opportunity to succeed and to grow? And that really ties in with the next one. They embrace challenges. They like being challenged. They welcome feedback. They view it as constructive, not personally critical. And they view other successes as inspirational. Somebody with a growth mindset will very happily look at other people's success and think, that's brilliant. How can I use that for mine? So let's have a think again. Go back to those two scenarios. We have a student struggling with their pronunciation. What might a student who has been taught to develop a growth mindset, how might they show they have a growth mindset in a situation where they're struggling to pronounce particular words?
I feel like practice would be a good indicator. So, you could have a lesson with a student a couple of weeks back and notice that they maybe couldn't say the word at all. And then the next time you have them, they're able to say it. And that's a great indicator that a student has a growth mindset. Definitely. Because they view practice as, kind of a building block, getting them to that next step, achieving something, achieving a challenge. So that could be a really good indicator that your student maybe has embraced the growth mindset already.
Yes, definitely. And let's apply it to the teacher. You've had feedback. Again, most of it's positive, but there's some very specific areas that your management, whoever's in the feedback, wants you to work on. How would you show that as a teacher you have a growth mindset?
Just being open-minded about it, kind of seeing it as constructive criticism again, something that's going to make you a better teacher.
Yes.
It's not necessarily negative, it's just an outside perspective and a reflection maybe on what somebody else has seen, which could be very beneficial, and very useful.
Yes, definitely. As a teacher, we should always think, how can I improve? I'll come back to that a little bit as well. That doesn't mean you're always putting yourself down. I don't mean that. But just like Rose just said, use that feedback to be better, to elevate your teaching, to think, okay, that didn't go so well, that's fine. And we'll look at that a little bit more.
Yes, someone said here, ask questions to make sure you know how you can grow.
Oh, and that's brilliant.
So good. And in what ways you can improve, clarify things for yourself to show you want to try and improve things. So that's a great point.
That's really, I love that, to show that you want to, that you are open to that feedback, and that you embrace it just like you would embrace a challenge. That's great. So now we're going to have a bit more look at this growth mindset and applying it. So first of all, please use the chat box. What do you think are the advantages of having a growth mindset? We could probably talk about it all day, but what's something that you feel is an advantage of it?
Well, I will give you an advantage that I think a growth mindset would, give us as teachers. And that would be boosting your self-confidence, because you are, you've got this mindset of, I can achieve anything, I have the ability to do anything if I work hard, if I, learn new things, which I'm completely capable of. So I think self-confidence is a big advantage of having a growth mindset.
Yes, absolutely. And as a teacher, we need to have that confidence. Our students need to trust that we know what we're doing. And that will come with time. When you first begin to teach, whether that's online or in a classroom, it's nerve-wracking, that very first lesson. I remember my first online lesson and feeling very sick. But you want that self-confidence, and that comes, as Rose said, with having that growth mindset. It comes with time and experience.
Someone said that it means your teaching never stagnates. You will be able to change your approach towards your lessons. And so hopefully you can deliver lessons that are more specific for individual learners.
That's fantastic, because you can be a teacher of a subject for 30, 40 years maybe. But if you are, that word's really good, stagnant, if you've never changed how you've taught it, well, things change and children change. The children now are not the same as the children were maybe 5 years ago. What they know, what they may have an awareness of already. And we'll look at that in a minute about growing in your teaching. So yes, it's continually thinking, how can I make my lessons better for my students? And the more the better it is for your students, the better it is for you personally as well, because you get far more enjoyment if you have that self-esteem and self-confidence. So let's have a look at the pros of a growth mindset here. So we have lifelong learning. So you never stop learning, no matter how old you are. The saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, may be true for dogs, but it's not true for humans. I know people who are very elderly who still learn every day with different things. So we can always learn. As Rose mentioned, there's a higher self-esteem, and this reduces stress and aggression. So if you have that fixed mindset and everything anybody ever says to you is just a criticism, you will get stressed, and it could become that defensive, aggressive state, which would not be very good for your self-esteem, and it's not a very nice feeling. It increases well-being and emotional functioning. We adapt better to changing situations, which in online teaching and teaching in a classroom changes almost daily. And we can be more creative in solving problems. Okay, so I have to come out to do this. Oh no, I can do it here, sorry. So we're just going to launch this poll. So the question is, how can we encourage a growth mindset during lessons? And this is a multiple choice, so you can choose as many as you like. So I'll just do this now. Okay, fantastic. And that's great, because everybody has chosen the top three, which is what we wanted. There, I've shared those results just to check that we can see those. So that's brilliant. So yes, those last two were definitely not how to encourage a growth mindset. We never want to encourage a student just to focus on their strengths. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And we would never want to not challenge our students. So yes, let's have a look at these the answers you've chosen. So praise and effort, creating a classroom environment that challenges, and practicing and encouraging self-reflection. So let's look at these in more detail now, and again, how to apply. So we're going to look at 5 tips on encouraging growth mindsets, and this is for us and for our students. So the first one, so to praise effort rather than intelligence. How do we do this? Well, we place emphasis on practicing, asking for help, and consistent praising. So how do you think, as a teacher, you could apply those 3 points to show growth mindset for you? So any of those points, what do you think?
I think just demonstrating them in the class is a great way to get students to become aware of these points, that it's okay to ask for help. You know, praising any effort made, even if it's not answering the question, but they've tried. That needs to be praised, and they will pick up on this. I mean, children are like sponges, so you know, whatever you demonstrate, they're gonna kind of apply as well. So I just think demonstration is a great way to, you know, just emphasize these things.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. Asking for help is really good. So for many years, I worked as an assistant in a classroom for about 20 years. And it was, you always knew you had a good teacher when the teacher would ask you for your advice and you could then bounce off each other. This is a great model for students because they can see my teacher doesn't always have every answer, and they're happy to ask the assistant, or the assistant is not sure what they're doing, so they can ask. And that's a really good model because they know it's okay to ask for help. If my teachers are doing it, I can do it.
So someone's asked a question, and it's a really good question. They said, how can you teach your students to ask for help when they have very little confidence in themselves, or they are shy and so do not talk a lot? Okay, so I have to think about this. How would you? Okay, so maybe if it's an online situation and you are aware that they are shy, offer help. So when they're struggling, we obviously would never just jump in. We give them enough time to try and accomplish the activity, whatever it is that they're doing, reading or something. And then if they're really struggling and you can see, I've worked with many shy, reserved students. Sometimes it's not always culturally viewed as a good thing to ask for help. To say, can I help you? And then they know, oh, that's okay. And if they're not sure, I will often say, it's okay. Like if they get it wrong and they say, oh, I'm sorry. I will always say, it doesn't matter. It's okay. Can I help you? And then that, I think, gradually over time, and to also emphasize, if you want help, you can ask me. You know, if you can raise your hand, maybe give them a signal. So maybe they could just raise a finger if they want help, especially in maybe a classroom situation where there's lots of students. And I've worked with many students who are frightened to ask for help because they are worried they will be perceived as being unintelligent or, you know, just not clever enough like their classmates. And to literally just go up to them and say, can I help? And I think that's probably the best way to model it. I don't know if you had any experience you think as well, Rose, or? I think, again, praise is so beneficial in this instance because, you know, when they are shy, but they've tried, you know, they've put themselves out there, that needs to be praised. That needs to be known that, you know, that is good. You know, even though it might be the wrong answer, at least they've tried and put themselves out there to, you know, kind of answer the question. And I think praise is so beneficial in motivating students, in building self-esteem, in getting them to that next step with their confidence. And I just think praise is so useful in a, you know, face-to-face classroom or online as well. Yeah, definitely.
I completely agree. So let's have a look. Oh, sorry, I forgot to do animation. Okay, so tip 2, encourage students to practice working on their weaknesses. And just last week, a friend of mine gave me a really good quote, and they said, focus on your strengths, work on your weaknesses. So when we are encouraging our students to work on their weaknesses, that does not mean we forget about their strengths. And it's the same for us as a teacher. When we get that feedback, oh my goodness, and again, we'll look about that, about reflection a little bit later. Don't just see your weaknesses. See your strengths, focus on them, work on your weaknesses, and then you will grow together. So how do we do this? I think this is a really good tip. So when students do make mistakes, avoid saying something like, oh, well, you tried your best. Why? Because this implies that there is no room for improvement. If that's already their best, then they're never going to get it right. They're never going to improve on that. And as we were talking about before, praising any kind of effort that's made and motivate our students to keep trying. Something that's very important for praise is that it needs to be specific. It is great to be in a lesson and to be constantly, whether that's online or in a physical classroom, to be saying, great, everybody, well done. Oh, that was brilliant. But if we're specific about it, there's a purpose. Generalized praise is great, but if that's all we do, it will lose its effect. And eventually people don't notice it because they think you're not really praising me for anything specific. However, for example, a student has read something and they couldn't read it last lesson. So you're like, oh, that was great reading. That was brilliant. Well, they master a bit of grammar if this is like an ESL student. Brilliant. You can form that. You understand past simple. You gave me a question. You gave me a sentence. And as Rose said, any effort, anything we can praise will build them up. You can never praise too much, but the more specific it is, the more meaningful it will be. And again, does anybody else have any thoughts about this, how we can help students to work on those weaknesses?
Well, I like to, at the end of my lessons, I like to really emphasize what they excelled at. You know, maybe they formed excellent sentences. So at the end, I like to, you know, just praise them on that again. So just saying something like, you made such great sentences in our lesson and it was fantastic. I can tell you've been working so hard. So, you know, to end that lesson on a good note that boosts their confidence, which will then in turn get them to practice and try and, you know, do all those things again. So I think that's very useful. Somebody said, whenever my student asks me a question, I always say to them, that was an amazing question, and then answer them. It often boosts their confidence, and some will always try to think of one so that they can impress me. It's very sweet.
Oh,
that's so great.
That. Oh, I love that. And I think, remember, for us, when you get good feedback, whether that's from your friends about something about your personality or something, or whether that's in your job as a teacher, how does that make you feel? That makes you feel amazing. You think, I've done something right. Okay, that's really positive. So think, if I praise my student, how will that make them feel? Is my praise going to be like, you tried your best, fixed mindset, or is it going to be, go for it, you can grow, you're amazing? And you can use this with students of any ability, and it makes a huge impact. Okay, so number 3, this is very tied in with this, but complementing effort and progress. You want to complement all effort and all progress. So these are some really nice phrases that you could use. Oh, you're working so hard. I can see all the progress you've made. I can tell you've been practicing. That's really nice, because that shows that you recognize they're working outside of their lesson, that you're really recognizing their hard work. And this is nice. I love that you use the new strategies to solve the problem. So does anybody else having maybe any experiences or thoughts about using this, about complementing and all kind of hard work and effort? No, that's okay. Again, it's that point about making your praise specific. One way that's really handy is if you are in a lesson, whether that's online or physical, and after the lesson you are required to maybe write some written feedback. You could include this in your written feedback, even if it's something like an end of term report, or if it's something you have to do at the end of every lesson. Every school and education is different, what they would require their teachers to do. But again, as a teacher, how do you feel, or how did you feel as a student when your teacher gave you really positive written feedback? You'd have felt recognized for your hard work. It would have been really motivating. Probably run home to mum or dad, say, look what my teacher said. Well, I think, can we have that impact on our students? Can we say, my teacher said this about me? Just think how that will make them feel. And again, they'll come the next lesson, they'll come ready. I know my teacher's going to recognize my hard work. It doesn't matter if I got that bit wrong because they knew I got that bit right. All of that constant building up. Okay, so number 4, let's develop a classroom culture that values challenges. So again, we talked about a growth mindset. We welcome challenges. So how can we do this? This is something really handy. The first one about setting a weekly challenge activity. This works particularly well in a physical classroom. Often children in a physical classroom can be separated into groups or houses, and they can earn points throughout the week for a particular challenge that you as the teacher set. An even better way is to ask the students to set the challenge themselves. That involves them, it motivates them. Again, it's helping them to grow. And you make sure that you set a challenge that ensures everybody in each group is able to accomplish that. So it's never just for your higher level or for your lower level or your normal student, everyday students. Okay. The second one I'm going to ask Rose to talk about, because it talks about discussing stories of characters that have overcome challenges. And I really like Rose's ideas about this.
So I think this is a great activity to use in a physical classroom, because in an online classroom, we might not always have, stories accessible to us in the lesson. So discussing stories of characters that have overcome challenges is a great way to reflect on those characters and to ask, your students, what did they do to overcome those challenges or achieve their goals, and they can kind of relate this to themselves. Hey, I did this too, I struggled with this and I worked really, really hard and I achieved it. And in a online classroom, we could maybe ask students to reflect on their own challenges, in the past, what was difficult for them, what did they work really, really hard for, and achieve that goal or challenge, what was the process of doing that. And I think that's a great way to get them to self-reflect and to show them that they can do it. They have the ability to achieve things and to overcome challenges and to see challenges as maybe building blocks or stepping stones to getting them to that next part of learning or, learning new things. Someone said, I will sometimes ask my higher level students to come up with one question based on their homework and bring it to their next lesson. This way I know what they want to learn and what they feel they need further guidance on.
I love that. That's very individualized. And as we'll come through with this, there'll be another webinar later. We're talking about how we always teach every student as an individual. And that's a really good way. We recognize that we can instill a growth mindset in all of our students and ourselves, but it will be different for each student as to how we do that. So that's a great idea. Thank you, Rose. And the last one, collaborative problem solving. Again, this is particularly effective in a physical classroom because you can pair more able students with students that maybe are a little bit less able or just a little bit less confident, and you can problem solve together. And again, that can be with ESL or it can be with any subject. Okay, so number 5, let's make self-reflection part of your classroom culture. Okay, so how do we do this? Well, we can ask students to reflect on something that was difficult in their week, something they achieved something they achieved in the week and how they achieved it, and something they worked really hard for. Now, this doesn't have to just be topic based. When your student comes to lesson, whether that's when you're greeting them at the door of a physical school or when you are greeting them in an online setting, it would be really good to spend a few minutes asking how their day was, how are they. This way they are opening up, especially young ones, as Rose, the little sponges. They don't even take it in, they want to give it out, so they want to share. So if we model that in just a general, how was your day, what did you do? And if we take an interest, and the next day, oh, how did you do on such and such? So for example, you may have an online student that says, oh, I have tests all this week. This is quite a common thing for ESL students. Well, recognize that. So the next time they come, how did you do with your tests? And then they'll talk about it. And then you can begin to use that self-reflection on the lesson topic. You can teach them and say, oh, you know, you last lesson, this, you know, this was a bit tricky for you. How did you find it this week? I can see in your homework you got it. Oh, I'm so proud of you. Doing all that kind of self-reflection for them, but basing it right from the minute you say hello, right up until you say goodbye. Does anybody else have any ideas or experiences that they use to help their students to reflect? No, that's okay. We will keep moving forward. That's not a problem. So now let's look at reflection for us as teachers. So reflection, I will just, sorry, I've lost my mouse. Sorry, my box is covering the word. I'm sorry. So reflection is a basic part of teaching and learning, and it aims to make you more aware of your own professional knowledge and action. So really, that quote really speaks for itself. Without reflection, we will never become better teachers. We will become, as somebody said at the beginning, very stagnant. That doesn't mean we're an appalling teacher. It just means that we never improve. We never welcome the chance to be even better. We may have a natural ability as a teacher. It may be something we have to really work on. Reflection will help us to grow in whatever way that will be. And ultimately, we want to reflect because reflection for ourselves as teachers ensures that our students will learn more effectively, and it's individualized teaching. The learning is tailored to them, which is essential. If we don't treat students as individuals, those who are naturally able will do okay, but they will probably never achieve their full potential. And we want that for all of our students, whether they are ones who are lower level ability or really high. We want to reflect that our teaching ensures every student reaches their potential, and it's the best feeling when we do that. That feeling is amazing. So let's have a look. The process of reflection. So we can just see from this picture here that it's an ongoing thing. You never stop reflecting. The process keeps going, and sometimes you will spend more time reflecting, and other times it will not be. You won't need to spend as much time. So let's break these down. So we teach, then we self-assess the effect of our teaching. This doesn't mean that we are negative and we just put ourselves down. Remember, look for your strengths first. Focus on your strengths and then focus on your weaknesses. Yes, Rose, you have your hand up.
I just wanted to add, somebody made a really good point on the topic of reflection. And they said, we can't really ask students to reflect on themselves if we cannot do it for ourselves first. Absolutely. So we can guide better through experience and knowledge. And I think this is key. I think especially in an online situation where you don't have colleagues around you, you're not with a huge group of people as you are in a physical school. I think self-reflection is key for an online teacher, because you're able to, like you said, tailor your lessons to students. And as we know, all students have different needs. They're different levels. They are different ages, Yes. So I think self-reflection is definitely key for an online teacher as well as a teacher in a physical school.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think without it, we just can't improve. And we're modeling it for our students. So don't be fooled. Students will see when we've changed how we teach something. They may have thought, oh, this lesson was really boring yesterday, but today it's really interesting. Don't underestimate what your students think. Remember when you were in school and you had a lesson like that, and you're like, oh, Mr. So-and-so, it's really boring. And then you go to his lesson and it's amazing. And you think, Maybe you don't sit there and think as a student, well, he must have self-reflected, but you have appreciated that that has happened, and that's then models it. Okay, they changed the way they took, maybe I can change the way I'm learning. Constantly modeling. So as we said, teach and self-assess. If we need to, consider new ways of teaching, adapt. I have done many an online lesson and lessons and prepared really well for it, and it's just not worked. The student I've been with, even though I have prepared for them, maybe I didn't know them as well as I thought I did. I've struggled to explain something, I've talked too much, and it's coming out of that lesson of thinking, okay, this went well, this didn't go so well, that's fine. How can I make sure it doesn't happen again in the future? So again, it's not about beating yourself up. It really isn't. It's just about saying, how can I elevate it? What can I do next time to make it even better? And there will be some lessons when you come away and you think, do you know what? Everything went great. Then I'll do that again in the next lesson. And that's the form of self-reflection. You don't always have to find a weakness. And again, obviously, once you've got those ideas, try those ideas in practice and repeat the process. Again, it's that constant ongoing learning. So how can we challenge ourselves as teachers? I don't know about you, but I love a challenge. Again, it stops you being stagnant, it helps you grow, and it models it to our students. So there's 5 really good tips here. So set goals for yourself, set achievable goals. So you can set aims, and then you can set long-term goals. So your aims help you to reach your goals. So they're like a step, do little steps at a time. This is very important. Number 2, it's important about working with new technology in a physical classroom, because those interactive whiteboards can be a pain. But it's very important if you're an online teacher, because technology is forever changing, online classrooms change, and if you're not up to date with it and haven't got yourself familiar and maybe have the training, whatever your company may provide, you could struggle and flounder. And that could look unprofessional, and for your self-esteem that wouldn't be great either. You want to, we mentioned this right at the start about looking at different ways you can teach. So research and then implement new teaching strategies. There may be strategies that come out that you hear of that you're not so keen on. That's okay, but later there may be ones that you think, oh, I really like that. Constantly be looking. Maybe if you are able to observe other teachers, things like that, and pick up their teaching strategies, sharing ideas, whether that's through a staff room, a physical or an online staff room, you can share ideas and be welcome to do those. Ask for feedback. So as we said, nobody likes getting told this didn't go so well. Nobody does. But view it as a challenge almost. View it as constructive. Okay, I'm not having that feedback in my next feedback. I'm going to have met that target, or however it is that your feedback is given to you. But ask for it in the meantime. If maybe your feedback is maybe every term, or maybe every month or something, well, in the meantime, ask for feedback. You can ask for it from your students. When I was an assistant, a teacher would often ask myself and other assistants, how did that lesson go? Did that work? Did that work? And I would say the same for them. So welcoming those things. And then again, obviously, self-reflecting. So I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts about that themselves.
Well, someone asked, how or where would you suggest we find new ways of teaching or strategies, especially for online teachers who are more isolated?
Great question. I thought that would come up. So Google is our friend, isn't it, often? So you can keep an eye. You could possibly, there are lots of different educational magazines that that don't cost anything, that you could subscribe to, or you could frequently check. Again, if you're in an engagement group whether you have an online staff room, again, that point about sharing ideas. So you could say, I'm teaching this particular tense today, I've never taught it, has anybody else got any ideas? Can you help me? But I just think keeping an eye, or maybe I want to say not new curriculum, but new strategies that come through. So keeping an eye on, yes, educational websites that are, so I have a few that I have regular emails from. I don't tend to read all of them, but sometimes you might see something that catches your eye. I know there are quite a few different TEFL companies that have those sorts of things. Our company obviously had these sorts of webinars and other ways. So yes, just kind of researching around for educational companies and websites, and maybe, as long as it's up to you if you pay for them, obviously, but you can subscribe to quite a few free ones and get those different strategies. Okay. So this is just the time. I know we've had quite a few questions throughout, which is brilliant. So if anybody has any questions that they'd like to ask, or any ideas or anything they'd like to share as an experience, please feel free.
So I think that, you know, I'm sure there are people that don't agree with the growth mindset, but I believe, you know, certain aspects of the growth mindset can be extremely beneficial in a classroom, you know, promoting that I can do it to students, especially students learning a new subject, learning a new language. That can be very daunting and very scary. And ultimately, you would want them to have that growth mindset. You know, I want to be challenged. I want to practice. I want to try new things. You know, that's going to get me to the next step. So I just feel certain aspects of the growth mindset is so important in the classroom, and to promote that to your students, you know, to encourage them to try new things, to not be scared of challenges or failure even, because of course there's a lot of failure in learning. That's how we learn. So
of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think reiterating that and talking from your own experience is really good. If you can say to a student, yes, I used to find this difficult. Yes, this, if you're teaching particular, yes, do you know what? This is hard. You know, this helps me. But by saying, yes, I was once like you, as in I struggled, I didn't understand it, but look, I did get it. So can you. And I'm going to help you. I'm going to be there to facilitate that for you. You're not on your own. And yes, and then they are much more open. Then you can have a laugh with them. You know, if they mispronounce a funny word, you can have a sense of humor. But I agree with you, Rose. I think a growth mindset is essential for students, but particularly teachers.
Yes. So we have a couple more questions here. The first one is, how can you show students what their weaknesses are to help them improve on these while not making them feel bad about the aspects of themselves or their capabilities?
Okay, oof, big question. Okay, so what I often do as an ESL teacher, so if a student gets something wrong, so you might say, read this text, answer this question, is this true about this text? Did this happen? And they say no, but it is true. So they say it's false, but it is true. I would never say, no, that's not right. I'd say, not quite, something like this. Or, oh, you're on the right lines, maybe not the true or false statement, but, oh, let's try again. Or when they've done something and that they're part of it, they've done really well in. So you read that question brilliantly. So you focus on that strength. But that's not quite right. Let's try together again. So you're not saying to them, that was completely wrong. You know, you've completely failed. You said, this is what you've done well. Even if it's really minimal, you've read it. Yes, you've not got the answer right. That's okay. Let's try again. So they know they've got it wrong, but they haven't felt belittled. I don't know about you, Rose. Is there anything that you do? There's so many ways to answer that question.
Yes. So the first part of the question, how can you show students what their weaknesses are to help them improve? I would say targets.
Yes, so that was my next. Yeah.
I would get them to work on those weaknesses, and soon they would see, okay, well, I'm practicing, so it might not have been something I was really good at, but now because I'm practicing, you know, I'm getting better, I'm learning how to do it or how to say it, or, you know, anything like that. So I think targets
definitely
are really good. And of course, they need to be achievable. They need to be broken down into smaller parts so that they can achieve it and then ultimately build that confidence moving forward.
Yes.
We had another question. Can you give some examples of a weekly challenge and how you can encourage your students to try them?
Okay, so if this was in a physical classroom, you could tailor it to your students' weaknesses. So maybe you have a set of students who never do their homework, and there's no kind of real reason for that. That, you know, they have good family support, they just refuse to do it. Maybe even the parents have come in, I've experienced this, and said, I cannot get so and so to do the homework. So you could set as a whole class challenge to do the homework every day or however long, and then they can win points. Another one could be, so maybe online, I will often set a target after a lesson saying, over the coming week, practice these in our next lesson, because some students I personally have once a week, others 3 or 4 times a week. You can make sure if you're their only teacher, or if you're their next teacher, you can look at targets that a previous teacher may have set online, if that's how it works. You can say, okay, in that week, and test them. Oh, did you make up those questions? Did you find 5 objects that are made of wood? Whatever it is you may be teaching. So tailor it according to something, either something that they are struggling with, or if your class are feeling a bit flat, something that you know they will love. Okay, so it could even be, I've worked in classrooms where it's keep the classroom tidy, because they never keep it tidy, but because they've got that challenge, so it might sound simple, oh, that's not educational, but it is. It's about teamwork, it's about motivating each other, and that all of those sorts of things are good. But challenges, tailor them to your student or students, and take it in turns, focus on the strengths, focus on the weaknesses.
And we have one more question, which is a great question.
Okay.
What do you do if your student doesn't respond well to verbal praise because they struggle to understand it, or are too low level to understand it? So what they're saying is, how can you motivate them in that case?
Okay, I wish I had it here. They're just out of my reach. I have sticker charts. Yeah. So for example, in one of my lessons recently, I was able to look, it was a new student, and I could look at her previous lesson very quickly just to get an idea. And I saw that she loves princesses. She came to her class with a crown on. So I have princess stickers, like Disney princess stickers, mine are. And because she actually was quite capable, but she was very little. But I use those sorts of stickers. I have cars, I have superheroes. I know other people have ice cream cones and things like this. So you don't even have to, they know they've done well because they've got a sticker. They've got an ice cream on the cone. I know some people have jars with stars and things in that they use. Other people have their cars that move around the racetrack until they get to first position. So that they know they're doing well. Again, with a lower level, maybe that's not something we would be giving. Like, you can still give specific praise. You read well, you spoke well, that was great listening, but obviously it wouldn't be as detailed as for a Brady, particularly if it's if it's ESL, who is very capable, and then you can give very specific, but visible, and even send certificates, awarding certificates. And when I used to be in a physical school setting, I'd have a sticker chart. And stickers, and when they filled the chart, they'd get a chocolate, or they get a bag of sweets, and they loved it. And that even worked with 14-year-olds because so you can adapt your forms of praise according to their abilities quite easily. I quite like sticker charts, they're really fun.
I use I've made myself a donut box. I don't know if you can see it.
Yes.
So then they can choose the donut they want to put in the box. So
that's great.
That works really, really well with my lower level or younger students. And then I also just have little stickers on hand, you know, just to motivate them and encourage them and keep them, you know, participating and wanting to learn. So all those things you mentioned are a great way to motivate younger students who might not understand well done or great work or excellent. So those are really good ideas.
If they see a smiley face or a big gold sticker, and who of us doesn't love a sticker? Who of us doesn't love being given a gold star? We do. Yes. We still love it, but it's a really great way to show a less able, someone who can't communicate so well, that they've done well, and they're happy. Okay, so is that all of the questions? That's great. So thank you so much for coming, for your questions and your input. We hope that you found it useful. Please give us feedback. Let us know if there's anything Anything else you want to add? We really welcome it. Thank you so much to Rose. And we'll see you next week. So thank you very much.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.